Okay, so ta-da! And I know the timing was off. We actually wanted to start this yesterday because then it would make more sense. But now it's going to be okay. It will be a belated Star Wars practical question. Okay, and please don't be like, oh, Star Wars, nothing to take seriously. This is exactly the type of question, well, not Star Wars, but this is the exact type of question. Remember, story doesn't matter. Story just tells you what will my form be, what will my variables be. But the way I ask the questions, you see that all of these questions actually have a certain theme. So do you know what I'm going to ask you in the second semester test? Do you know what I'm going to ask you in the exam? The answer is yes, you actually do. Because you know I'm going to ask you to create 2 or more record structures. I'm going to ask you to combine those 2 record structures to form arrays. I'm going to ask you to initialize a UJ grid, label it, initialize your arrays. I'm going to ask you to enter data into there. I'm going to ask you to display some of that data. I'm going to ask you to add something or divide something or multiply or subtract something. So it will be one of the 4 basic math operations. But it will be do it for every so-and-so in an array of a record structure. Then I'm going to ask you to please find out which is a maximum or which is a minimum, or what is a maximum or what is a minimum. And I'm also going to ask you do some sort of selection. In other words, you either work with an if statement or a select case. And that's pretty much your semester test or exam. So if anyone goes, oh, I don't know what to study, nobody told me, that's a lie. You know what's going to be in the semester test. The only thing you do not know is what is the story and what the name of those variables are going to be. That's it. Okay. And yeah, okay, maybe you don't quite know what the calculation will be. But it won't be Maths 1 calculations. And some of you are like, I'm in Maths Extended. It won't even be Maths 1 Extended. It will be like high school maths at best. And not grade 12 high school maths, more like grade 8 high school maths. Okay? And we'll even tell you the formula is here. So if you know, oh, the formula is here, you can translate it into code. Good. You're done. You're done. The only thing you have to worry about is, are you doing it correctly in terms of calculating where these values must be calculated? Right? So basically navigating through your array in a record structure, which happens to be in another array. And then being able to display it. And knowing to initialize where necessary. That's it. That is your semester test and exam. And I really want to be in a state where we go, nobody here is going to write the exam. And in a good way. Not, sorry, less than 50 practical, see you next year. Right. Okay. So, honestly, when people ask for the code because they're late, it doesn't help when you share the code because we do look at the time when you enter the code, we see you're late, and we actually indicate you are late. So, all right. When we talk about that you know what you have to calculate, but the story is different, what does that remind you of? Anyone? Anyone who plays games? Lots of games? Anyone? Hands up. Only like, oh, the rest of you don't play games. Like, what? Okay, so some of you play games, and you know that there's a lot of games out there, these sandbox environments, but let's be honest, they're all the same, right? It might be Assassin's Creed. But then, if it's not Assassin's Creed, it's what? Some mercenary. If it's not a mercenary or an assassin, it's a car thief. But the thing is, it's still the same. You're still doing the same thing over and over again in the game. The story is slightly different, and maybe you fight someone different. This time, you fight a dragon. This time, you fight another bad guy. Okay, so seriously, you shouldn't panic about the story. You must just worry about, do you know the basics? So let's take a look at this story, okay? All right, so I see everyone's online is volunteering games and games and games on top of it. Okay, so over here we go, right? It's a 4th of May special. The story here is Empire has summoned you. Now, obviously, if you don't do Star Wars, you're like, what? I'm not a Star Wars fan. I've never watched a Star Wars thing in your life. That's okay. It doesn't matter. Hey, again, you don't need to understand Star Wars to go, oh, I can't do this break. You can do this break. Okay, so who knows nothing of Star Wars? Okay, a few of you. Let's see. Let's put this to the test and see, are you going to be able to answer this? All right. Okay. I'm not saying I don't watch Star Wars. I love Star Wars. Okay, just to show my age, not really, as in like, well, in a way, yes and no. My favorite Star Wars movie is actually Episode 4. Before they remastered everything and everything. I wasn't around when it first came out, but I mean, gee, then I'm Yoda, man. All right, but actually my favorite character is Obi-Wan Kenobi, but because he was played by Sir Alec Guinness, who's passed away many years. So some of you are like, no, it's Ewan McGregor. No, the original actor. Right, because I thought he was very wise. Yeah, I know. And I was in high school and I was like, this old man is really great. So anyway, so here's the story. It says COVID-19 has struck even in a galaxy far away. Look, if you're a fan of Star Wars or you know Star Wars, what does this do for you? Does this make you a better programmer, able to solve this problem? No. All it does is, for those of you who are Star Wars fans and understand this, you'll be like, I like this frack. That's all. Hey, that's all. Okay, so someone got excited. You're like, yeah, you see, like, the online people are like, aha. Okay, so after being in lockdown for so long, all the cantinas, and then obviously I know some of you are like, you don't know Star Wars. What's a cantina? So it's a bar. You know what a bar is, right? Do you really need to know how a bar works? No, not really, but let's find out. So all the cantinas are now allowed to reopen and serve their hard-working and then no doubt thirsty stormtrooper patrons. And you're like, what's a stormtrooper? Again, doesn't matter. You just know, okay, some customers at a bar. The Empire has decided that to help as many businesses stay afloat, they will monitor the activity at each cantina closely. Listen, you're going to do that. Every single practical you do, it's going to be something about, we want to monitor something closely, or we want to record something, we want to check something, because that's how you're going to enter information about this problem. Okay. Right. Yeah, I'm very ready for that Obi-Wan series. In fact, I've signed up for my Disney Plus subscription and go, tell me when you want my monies. Take my money. Okay, so here's a picture of 2 stormtroopers in case you don't know what stormtroopers are. All right, and again, okay, obviously in your semester test, you're not going to get this picture. It's just going to be all text, but it's okay, right? So is this really important? No. Yeah, no spoilers. Okay, anyway, so your task. So what are you going to do? Because you know the story. You don't even have to read this slide. This slide will be, you have been told to do this. Why? Because we need to say, oh, you are involved. You must do something. You must write code. Okay? What must you do? Just a little background story, but is it really important? No. The questions are important. The questions are going to tell you, you must do the following exactly. But anyway, here's more background. You are to design and develop a Visual Basic application that will allow the Empire to monitor the cantinas on each planet the Empire oversees. This is benevolently, of course. Don't you see how friendly the stormtroopers are? If there are any decimal values in your reports, The emperor will only want to see exactly 1 decimal place. Got it? So you're like, oh, what does that mean? Is this very, very, very important to me? Well, there's one piece of information here that is relevant, and that is in the back of your head, you're going to go, oh, format. The format command is going to come into handy now, right? In fact, because it already tells you exactly 1 decimal place, exactly. So in your brains already, when you go, the format command, it will be format, open bracket, whatever the variable is, comma, and then what will that pattern be? It will be quotation mark, right? And you will put in maybe a 0 if you really want to, and you go dot 0, and then you close the quotation mark. Does that make sense? You don't use hash, because if it's a hash, then it will be up to 1 decimal place. But here, they're saying it must be exactly 1 decimal place. So you use the 0 after the full stop to indicate exactly 1 decimal place. All right. Yeah, so someone's mic is on. I see there's hundreds of people here. Let's try and see if there's anyone online that's disrupting the force. Okay, I can't see it. Okay, well, someone's already admitted and okay, solved it. Thank you. Okay, so right. Does this make sense to you? Now, in your second semester test, you're going to get something similar where we will give a bit of backstory where we say we want all decimal values to be displayed in a certain format. So your 2 options are really up to or exactly. Will it be 1 decimal place, 2 decimal place, 3, 4, 5, 10, etc.? That doesn't matter. If it's 10, obviously you're going to have to go either hash, 10 times after the dot, or 0, 0, 0, 0, depending on whether we say exactly, which is 0, all right, or hash if it is up to. Does this make sense, everyone? Have you written it down somewhere? Because you or committed it to memory, because you're going to need to do this in your second semester test / exam. All right. Okay, so I've been asked to explain the hash again. So when you're working with the format command, if you use hash in your template, hash means that if the value is 0, you do not have to display it because 0 isn't something you need to see. Okay? Whereas if you use a 0 instead of a hash in the template, it means that if it is 0, still display that 0 for us to see. And that is how we know that we should use 0 in this particular example, because it says display exactly up to, well, exactly 1 decimal place. Meaning, if it is, if the value was 1, it would show 1.0. If it was 1.1, it will still show 1.1. If it was a hash, then if it said 1, the answer would just say 1 and not display the 0.0 at the end. Okay, so Jay Harms is asking, does the emperor, well, I believe I'm recording. Yes, I am recording according to Blackboard. Does the emperor care about rounding? Okay, so that's a good question to ask, all right? Should we care about rounding if we're busy doing this? And the answer is no, we don't have to worry about rounding in this example, because when we do the formatting, we assume that we go, okay, you don't have to worry about the rounding. We have sort of sorted out the rounding in this formatting. All right, if there is rounding, and as Jay Harms is asking, does the emperor care about the rounding? Maybe if rounding is important, it would be featured in the question. We'll say, instead of telling you, listen, you need to do format, we'll tell you, make sure rounding takes place, and we'll tell you exactly how you should round it off. Okay, but if you think about what we have done in the practical so far, we haven't really done any rounding, have we? All we've done is we've done C string and C int and so on, and there is in a way some sort of rounding taking place there as well, but not any official rounding that you might want to do. Okay, so the question there is, if the question says up to, then we use the hash, and the answer is yes, that's correct. Okay, so M Corsi asks, how will a value like this, 13.005, look like if we use hashes in the format? Well, it depends on how you have put the hashes in your template, but if you have 13.005 and your hash was, the pattern was 0 point hash, then it would only show 13 exactly. Whereas if you say 0.0, then it would show 13.0. Does this make sense? Right. Okay, I see that we are really spending lots of time just on this slide because clearly it is a very electrifying slide. Yes, I had to go there. Okay, anyway, as I've said before, we are definitely going to make your lives easier. We are going to give you a table for question 1. You're going to get that paper, and if you find that you don't get a table in question 1 for your second semester test or in your exam, you need to pinch yourself because you're dreaming or rather having a nightmare. Okay, question 1 will definitely be a table. The table will be like this. We'll even tell you, it will look like this. Okay, it will have these headings. It will have some, and you know what? The other thing you need to be aware of is that it will definitely have some indentation in your table, because you all know what those indentation means, right? It means that, haha, these are the fields for another record structure, because they all group together to describe a specific collection of something that we can treat as a single type of object. Okay, so over here you'll see at the top there will always be a sentence or so. Why? Because that sentence will tell you whether or not you're working with a one-dimensional array of that record structure, the outermost record structure, or a two-dimensional array of the record structure. Okay, and how will you determine whether it's one-dimensional or two-dimensional of the overall outer record structure? The answer is in the sentence itself. Look for how many different types of things we're looking for. Now, what I mean by that is, let's look at the sentence. The following information must be stored for each planet. So in other words, we know that this record structure is a record structure used to describe a planet. Okay? Is there only one planet? No. We know there's more than one planet because there's the word each. Now, please note that this isn't the time to go, okay, I must just look for the word each and that's all I do. That's not the exercise here. Okay? You're not going to go to a client later on when you graduate and you go, let's go for each. Okay? It doesn't work that way. You need to establish, is this one or many? Now, we all know in English language, each indicates more than one. And so we go, oh, okay, there's going to be more than one planet. So I know that if I define this record structure for a planet, it will be an array. But is it one-dimensional or is it two-dimensional? Now, we know that this is one-dimensional because it says for each planet, right? So there's only one aspect. There will be multiple planets. That's one dimension. That's one number. Are there 9 planets? Yes. Okay, 9 of them. Okay. How would this statement look if it wasn't one-dimensional, but rather two-dimensional? It would look something along the lines of the following information must be stored for each planet in each galaxy. Does that make sense? Then you go, hang on. 2 dimensions. For every galaxy, there are a number of planets. Does this make sense? All right. So over here, it's quite simple. It's a single dimensional array of these fields. So you know that here from this question, there are 2 record structures in this question because of the indentation. Again, when you go out into industry, you're not going to ask your client, where's the indentation? You got to figure it out. But for first years, it's nice and easy. All right. So over here you see, okay, there's a planet record structure. There's a field name, then size, and then information for each cantina on the planet. So we know, oh, this indentation here, all these things that are indented, they describe a cantina. All right. Is it just one cantina on a planet? No. How do you know it's not just one cantina? Because you see the word each there, right? For each cantina. So you go, oh, there's multiple cantinas on this planet. Now, before anyone panics and then goes, oh, wait, hang on. Realistically, let's think about this realistically. Is it realistic for the empire to have, say, 10 planets? And then on 10 planets, each planet only has the exact same number of cantinas on each planet. Is that realistic? No, not really, okay? But you know where it's acceptable. It's acceptable in Informatics 1A land. Okay, so please don't panic and go, wait, but realistically, planet 1 will have 3, planet 2 will have 6, that's more realistic. But we don't expect you to know how to do that. The answer is actually simple. If you really want to know how to do it, you add in an additional field that provides the dimensions for the number of cantinas for each planet. So in your planet record structure, you would add in one extra field to say how many cantinas in this specific planet. Okay, but we're not going to do that. We're going to work on a nice assumption that the empire is very strict, very uniform. So if there are 10 planets, every planet has exactly whatever number of cantinas. So if it's 3 cantinas on planet 1, it will be 3 cantinas throughout. You should just be grateful that that's the way it works in all your practical problems, because it makes your life easier. It's not that much of a stretch to fix it, but let's keep things simple. Okay. All right. So you'll notice here that name, size, and then last, then I'm going to skip these cantina ones because let's not worry about that. That's a separate record structure. Also know there's the bad cantinas, worst cantina, and rating. So in total, that the planet record structure has 1, 2, 3, because remember, each cantina itself is a field in the planet, right? Even if it's an array of a different type. And then it's 3, 4, 5, 6. So you tell yourself there's going to be 6 fields in your outermost record structure. And then the innermost record structure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now, the table will also tell you what data type you are working with. Nice. Okay. So when you're drawing your UML class diagram, your data structures, there's really no excuse as to why you do it incorrectly because all the information is here. On the right, this is really meant to help you. So there are examples for each record field. Why? Because if you have the name there, okay, that's one name, that's one single field. Then 1452, that's a single value. Single value for your cantina ID. Single string for your manager. Patrons per day. Now, patrons per day, you see there are multiple values. What does that tell you? That is going to be an array. Does this make sense? And even if you didn't have this, even if I said, oh, no, you know what, you're big boys and girls now, you must figure it out yourself. I'm not going to give you examples. Will you be able to determine it's an array? Yes. Why? Because you would have read there, patrons per day. Now, let's ask yourself this question. You have how many dimensions in this question? In total. Dimensions being representing the different types of sizes of your arrays that you're working with in this question. How many? 3, right? 1 for each planet. So in other words, there are a number of planets. There are a number of cantinas. And there are a number of days. So when you declare your record structure and your variables, you need to keep track of the fact that there are at least a minimum of 3 arrays in the picture. Because if there weren't 3 arrays in the picture, why would you have 3 dimensions? Does that make sense? Okay, right. It could be, but on the other hand, if something was a two-dimensional array, then maybe 2 of those dimensions for the 1 array. Okay. Would I be so mean as to ask you 2-dimensional arrays? Anything is possible. All right. Okay. But anyway, I'm glad that the online people are saying that yes, there is 3 fields as well. And the other thing I also thought it would be important to tell you is that there will be a number of fields in the table that will say it is calculated. Now, why is that written there, calculated? It is, again, to remind everyone that those fields are not for you to ask the user. Because that's one of our things that we pick up quite often. That, and when I say quite often, I mean the people who are not sitting and listening to me right now. So the people, you know, that don't attend any single class, and then suddenly they come to class for the test, and they go, oh, here's a table. I'm going to ask people, what's the name, what's the size, what's the canteen ID, the manager, the patrons per day, the incidences, the danger rating. What's the danger rating? Okay, after your danger rating, okay, how many bad cantinas? Ah, okay. We also want you to ask, tell us what is the worst cantina. And then afterwards, we're going to tell you to please tell us what the rating is. You see, he's shaking his head. What's wrong with that picture? That's like if you have a calculator and the calculator says, listen, calculator works. Right? Just enter what you want to calculate. You go, okay, fine, 100 plus 20, and you go equal, and then the calculator goes, yes. Go on. What is it equal to? Okay. You know the whole point of you writing these programs is that it performs the calculations for the people. They do the job of entering the data, but you were supposed to write the code that will perform the calculation. Okay, so please just keep that in mind. The calculator is there for your benefit to tell you, listen, do not ask the user for them. You are going to calculate it. Right, and typically what happens with these calculations is they all relate to the previous calculations. So in other words, to work out the rating, you will see that you actually have to work out the worst cantina first. And to work out the worst cantina, generally you would have to work out the bad cantinas. And in order for you to work out the bad cantinas, you would need to work out the danger rating. Now, sometimes you may find that the questions are in such a way that you calculate certain things, and you can go on calculating different things because they don't relate to each other until the end. That's also a possibility. But what I'm trying to get at is, please try and focus on answering your questions from start to finish. In any other semester test or exam, like in maths, you can jump to question 5 at the end, right? With Informatics 1, you cannot do that. Please don't do that, okay? Because you actually need to have written the code in the beginning. So for example, can you start writing code to enter things if you haven't defined a record structure? No, okay, doesn't make sense. All right, okay, so we've discussed that. Every line there's a new button. Yes, well, not every line, but the idea is every question, try and put the code in a separate button. Because remember, Mr. Lebier and I are marking your practicals, all of them, ourselves, because all the assistants need to study for exams. So you want us to find your code easily. So put in all your buttons so that we know that, oh, if I click on that button, there's this code. I can mark it. Okay, not look through it and scroll up, scroll down and go, oh, half an hour later, I'm getting very annoyed with you. And now I'm frustrated. You're going to get less marks. Okay, all right. So that's question 1. But notice that question 1 didn't actually say write any code. But you read between the lines and you know that, okay, this question involves me having to define my 2 record structures as well as the variables required for my record structure as well as the three variables, the dimensions for my three variables. Okay, notice that at this point here, there's nothing about resizing arrays yet. This question 1 alone is really just defining your variables and your record. Is that fine?
So we got our grid is supposed, but our union grid is supposed to look like from looking at what our structure is supposed to contain.
You will get to it. Okay, right. So for this question, you all understand it's not a lot of marks. This doesn't count a lot. But what happens if you get it wrong? So in other words, what if for any of these fields you leave out a field? So you forgot to include a field for indices. Or you add, okay, so there are one of two things that can happen. You can maybe forget some fields, okay? Or you put in too many fields. As in, here you can see there was 6 for the outermost record structure, but you suddenly added 7. What do you think will happen then? The easy answer, obviously, is that all of you are going to go, you lose some marks. Yes, you do. Okay? Which one is more dangerous? Leaving something out or adding too many fields? Leaving something out. Because I don't ask you to put these fields in because I feel you should type as many lines of code as possible. I've told you from the beginning now, I'm not into that. I just want to test you, and I go, each question I ask is meant to test you something different. If you can demonstrate you're able to do that, I'm satisfied, I'm okay, move on. Okay? Not go, fluke, let's try again, Not that way. So, please do yourselves a favor when you do your record structure, count how many fields there are here and make sure that when you write the code, you go, do they match? Okay? If you have too many, you lose marks, but it might not be train smash depending on whether you use it incorrectly or not. Because I have seen in cases where someone added additional fields and they ended up using the additional fields inconsistently. So they added an additional field, for example, in this case, for incidences as well. So then now there's 2 fields representing incidences. And throughout the rest of their code, sometimes they use the proper incidence we told them to use, and then at other times they use the other one that they had spared. But because they're using 2 separate ones, now you're not updating to the same incidence field all the time, so you're getting an incorrect result at the end. Does this make sense? Okay, so really don't try to keep to the script. That's what we're asking you. Keep to the script. The other thing that can happen that is very disastrous is if something is an array and you don't make it an array, or something is array and you understand. So it's an array, you didn't make it an array. It's not an array, you made it an array. Both of them are equally very disastrous. Okay, so that's why I think it's so important that you are able to spend time on this and get it right. Okay, I see that there's a question here in the table. How can you tell that something is an array? I've already talked about that, I think, quite extensively now. I think the physical people are nodding their heads and going, please, not anymore. Okay. Okay, so please just review this video again, and you'll see what I mean there. And CT Morrows helped you answer that question. Okay, so let's move on here. At least let's look at question 2 before, and then we'll have to end it today, and then we'll resume next week. And next week is going to be interesting. I believe the timetable is Monday and then Monday. So 2 Mondays. See you next week, Monday and Tuesday. Right. Anyway, your program must allow the empire to specify the number of planets, the number of cantinas per planet, the number of days that a cantina is monitored for. Question 2. You see, in case you didn't get it right for question 1, for how many dimensions there are, but you could have told. You could have seen from the question, right? Question 2 will be there to reinforce it for you and say, hello, by the way, your user needs to tell you how many. So if you see that you only had 2 dimensions earlier from your interpretation of the record structure and come here and you go, oh, wait, hang on, I need to enter 3. Go back to question 1 and look at it again because you've done something wrong. Okay, so the emperor is a fair ruler, and so the same number of cantinas is permitted to operate on each planet. Each cantina is monitored for the same number of days. So you see, simple. Keep it simple. Everything is the same. All right. And what does question 2 actually want you to do? Well, it's there to tell you, hey guys and girls, go back to question 1 and make sure your information is still consistent. Oh, and by the way, when you want to declare your variables for dimensions, make sure there are 3 variables for the dimensions. Okay. Then question 3 is allow the empire to input their data. Now that is only going to be possible if you have done a lot of code in between. And that code is getting how many, remember entering how many. Once you know what the dimensions are, what do? You resize your arrays, you resize your grid, you label your grid, and resizing your arrays is the trick. Have you practiced working on resizing your array? If not, please try for this weekend to work on this question up until question 2, where you resize everything, and then we'll go through next week, Monday, to show you, to see who is on the right track and who is on. Okay, please do yourselves a favor, really try question up to question 2. Okay, resize everything. Show me what you've got. Okay, that's it. All right, so question 2 is for you to resize your arrays, resize your grids, label your grid, once you know what the dimensions are. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy your